Hello friends, I was just getting ready to restring my uke and I was trying to decide whether I wanted to play high G or low G for the next couple of weeks. And I decided, well, what if we just played no G and think about a 3-string instrument, because it's a great way for us to talk about the magic of triads. Click the link below, get the free 3-page PDF off my website. You're going to need it to follow along with this lesson. I'm about to throw so much information at you in a short period of time because triads are truly one of the most powerful tools that we have in music. They help you understand the fingerboard, how harmony is constructed, moving voices within chords, how to solo, and so much more. But what is a triad? A triad is a 3-note chord that is the most foundational building block of harmony, and you play triads all the time. Play me a C major chord. That's a C major triad. Play me an F. That's an F major triad. Play me an A minor. That's an A minor triad. So where do these triads come from? We can build them off of our major scale. If we take a C major scale, we select any note in the scale, we play that note, we skip the next note. Play the next note, so we play a C, skip the D, go up to E. So C is our root, E is our third, skip the note F and go up to G. So G is our fifth. Our triad is comprised of a root, a third, and the fifth. The root is the name of the chord. And off of a C major scale, if we play C, E, and G, we get a C major triad. If you play your regular old C chord, what notes are we actually playing? C, E, G, and then an octave C. We have 2 C's in here, but it's the root, the third, the fifth, and then another root up top. Now, if we build chords off of our major scale, we have 3 types of triads, but there are actually 4 qualities of triads. So let's go through each and every one and the 3 inversions that we have on each of them on the fingerboard. Now remember, we are pretending that we have a 3-string instrument today. The G string does not exist. It doesn't matter whether it's high or low. We are only playing on the C, E, and A strings. If we add the G string back in the mix, we get 2 other string sets that we can play different triads on. So this is only 1/3 of the triads that you will really need on the instrument. All of the triads on our C, E, and A strings. Now if we go back to our C major chord, if we take the G string out of the equation, we play C, E, C. We're lacking that G. So this is not a C major triad if we take the G out of it. Where can we add that? So our first inversion of this C major triad, we're going to play this. Ignore the G, 4, 3, 3. There's a C major chord. Now we want to note where the root of the chord is, where the name C is. Because if we know that, we know where we can move this. If this is C major, then well, that's D major because I'm playing a D on the A string. There's an E major chord, F major chord, so on and so forth. So that makes this a movable position chord. Now if we go up to our next note, which is the G up here on the 7th fret of the C string, we had 7, 8, 7. This is our next voicing for C major. This should look familiar because isn't that like our G major chord just slid on up? So here's the first voicing for C, the second voicing for C, and then finally the last one we're going to play is 12, 12, 10. This is also C major chord. These are all groupings of C, E, and G. We have our A string root, E string root, and finally C string root. Now let's take this and look at minor triads. Now we could take this C major triad and turn it into a C minor triad, which means that we're going to take the third, the E, and make it flat. But that's not what we're going to do here. We're going to use a minor triad that occurs in the key of C because that's where we're working today. So we're going to take this 6th chord. We're going to take this C major chord and make it an A minor chord because those 2 chords actually share a lot of DNA. And we'll see when we get to chord substitutions why that is so important. So if we take this C major triad we were playing, we take our ring finger and put on the 5th fret of the E string, we get 4, 5, 3. Again, no G string in here. This is an A minor triad, but note that that's just 1 note different from our C major triad. And what's moving? Well, the G is moving up to an A. The 5th is moving to a 6th, then magically we have an A minor triad. So if we did the same thing up here on our 7, 8, 7, where's our G? Here it is. So if we move that on up, a whole step, we get 9, 8, 7. And there's an A minor triad. Now this should look familiar, right? It's our E minor triad that we know down here. And then finally, if we take that top C, we can take this G on the A string, make it into an A, and we have 12, 12, 12, which is an A minor triad. So our three inversions, we have the root on the E string, the root on the C string, and the root on the A string. Now let's look at our other two types of triads. Next, we have our final quality of triad that comes up in the major scale, which is our diminished triad, and this is built off the 7th scale degree, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. We're going to play a B diminished chord. Do not confuse this with a B diminished 7th chord, which has 4 notes in it. This is a B diminished triad. We have a B, a D, and an F. And you look at where my fingers are, you would probably say this is a G 7th chord. But remember, we don't have the G in the equation right now. So we're actually playing a B diminished chord. And we see this all the time in the uke world. If you put down your Hawaiian D 7th, 2 open, 2 open, we're actually playing an F sharp diminished triad. There's no D in this chord at all. We do this all the time. So we want to get our 3 inversions of B diminished. So in this first inversion, we have the B on the A string. Now if we move on up, we go to 5, 7, 5. There's a B diminished chord, and where is our root? It's on the E string. And then finally we have this last one of 11, 10, 8. My personal favorite, diminished triad voicing. Where is our root in here? It's right here on the C string. So C string, E string, A string. Now let's look at our final type of triad. Our final triad is the augmented triad, which is a major chord with a sharp 5 on it. Now this does not occur naturally in a major key. We see this one the least, but we should still address it and know our movable voicings. The great part is there's only really one voicing on this string set, and it slides up. So we're going to take a G augmented chord, and we're going to take this because a G 7th chord would be our dominant chord in the key, our chord of going somewhere, coming back to C, and the augmented chord gives us that same sort of feeling of wanting to go somewhere. So our G augmented chord would be 3, 3, 2. Again, no G string, but if you're strumming in this case, it's absolutely fine. Now the great part about augmented triads is they're stacked major thirds, which means all we need to go is up 4 frets. 7, 7, 6, 11, 11, 10. And we get all of the inversions of that. But it also means that this could be a G augmented triad, a B augmented triad, or a D sharp or E flat augmented triad, depending where we're putting it. This is a very useful sort of shape that we have. So let's take these triads now and put them to use over top of a song. This month on the Magic Ukulele Club, we are studying the song Moonlight in Vermont, one of my favorite ballads, but more specifically the Johnny Smith and Stan Getz version of the tune. Now the basic chords to the A section of the song are probably ones you mostly know. Let's play through them real fast. It starts on C major chord and goes like this. C, A minor 7th, D minor 7th, G 7th, then goes C, A minor 7th, B flat 7. That's a fun one. Go back to D minor 7th, G 7th, and C, G minor 7th. G 7 sounds like this. Pennies in a stream, falling leaves, a sycamore, moonlight in Vermont. Now over top of this, Johnny Smith on guitar is predominantly playing triads. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take these chords and simplify them so that we can play triads. And then the next section, we're going to talk about how we can play the wrong triad over top of each of these chords to create different colors, which is really what Johnny Smith is doing. But this is a great practice in just getting our triads under our fingers. So if we take the G string out of the equation again, we're going to take our basic triads and put them here. So we're going to start on a C major triad, same one we started with before, nothing, 4, 3, 3, pennies. And then we're going to A minor. Remember, we just have to put our ring finger down. There's A minor. We're going to go to D minor. Whenever we have a seventh in here, we're going to just take it and simplify that by going with just the triad. So if it says A minor seventh, we're going to play A minor. If it says G seventh, we're going to play G. And we're going to add back in these colors in different ways in a moment. So we play C, put the ring finger down for A minor, D minor across the 5th fret. G is going to be 7, 7, 5. Let's just try those first 2 measures of this with just the triads. 3, 4, C, A minor, D minor, G. And here how we're already getting really nice voice leading, how the chords are flowing more into each other than we're playing like this. Less chunky chords, more inner voice movement. Now I want you to play those 4 chords again, and I'm going to play the bass line so you can hear how this works. 2, 3, 4 on C, A minor, D, G. Again, C, A minor, D minor on the 5th fret, G up, 7, 7, 5. Now if we play this G, coming back down here to this C is maybe not going to sound so great, but we know our other inversions, so let's just move it up to the 7, 8, 7 one. So our second one's going to start with C here, and then we're not going to jump down for this A minor because we know C and A minor are so close to each other. We're just going to find that 5th, find the G, raise it on up, and you can just reach your pinky around to get this, although I prefer to revoice it. Lots of ways that you can finger this. Right, so C to A minor, then we're going to walk it back down to that B flat chord. See, that's the same as our C when we play the B flat here. Right, now you hear that B flat's a little lacking, and we're going to address that in a moment because we're missing that dominant quality. We don't have that 7th in there, but here we are starting from bar 3. C, A minor, B flat. Then we know the rest. We go D minor, G, back down to C. We do a little turnaround, D minor, G. Let's try that together, the entire triad simplification exercise. All we're doing is taking the 7ths away and playing the meat and potatoes of the chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. A minor, 5th fret D minor, slide it on up to G, new C major chord, A minor, B flat, D minor again, to G, back to C. Here's our D minor and G. Let's hear that melody. Da da dee do dee. The other C. B da dee do do da dee. D minor. B da dee do dee. Now let's do it one last time, and this time I'm going to play the bass movement again so you can hear these chords flowing with a bass player in here. 2, 3, 4 on C. A minor, D minor, G. Repeat that. We go C, A minor, B flat, D minor, G, C. Now this is starting to get somewhere, but it's still a little bit vanilla, isn't it? So let's see how we can take these triads, the same shapes, and repurpose them in different ways over top of chords to create more movement within the harmony. Let's look at what we can play over top of a C major chord. We can play 2 different minor triads or a different major triad. So where we were now playing C, we can build off of each of the degrees of this. So we can take off the 3rd degree, right? C, E is our 3rd, and play a minor triad off the 3rd. So we can play an E minor triad off a C. And right now this sounds minor, but I want you to strum that, and I'm going to strum a C major against it. We're pretending we have a band. Hear how those two interact. We actually get this sound right here, which is the sound of a C major 7th chord. When we play a minor triad off the 3rd of a major chord, we get the sound of a major 7th chord. Our bass player is going to put that root in there and have the C, and we hear this sound, that nice floating sound of a major 7th. Now we can also build off the 6th of the chord. Remember we said that A minor and C share a lot of DNA. This is exactly where we see that, or we see that in, well, the tuning of our instrument. C 6th is the same as A minor 7th. It's the same exact notes. So whenever we see a C major chord, we can also play an A minor triad. We can play this while everyone else is playing this. Strum that A minor chord for me. I'm going to strum a C major chord. So we're really playing this C 6th sort of sound. Go to E minor. So there's our E minor chord. That's our major 7th sound. A minor. There's our C 6th sort of sound. And we can build one more triad off of this. Now this is a bit weaker. Our major 7th and our 6th are nice color tones. We can also play a G major triad, which might seem a little bit counterintuitive. Isn't that our 5 chord, our dominant chord? Well, if it's a triad, it doesn't have that F in it. That 7th that says, hey, I want to go somewhere. It's a stable triad. It's a nice, sweet major triad. What happens is we end up playing the notes of a C major 9 chord. So instead of playing that, we're actually playing that, or I guess more appropriately, if I want to get there, all the notes in there. There's the sound we're actually hearing when we play a G major triad over top of a C. I'm going to strum this C, play that G major triad that's written. No G string again, 7, 7, 5. You hear how we're getting that sound of that floating major 9 chord. So whenever we see a major triad, and this means we can simplify, right? So if we see C6, C major 7, anything that's in the C major family, we can simplify that to C and try one of our colors over top. We can play off the 3rd of the chord. If we see C, we can play any of our E minor triads. If we see C, we can play A minor. These are practically interchangeable as long as it doesn't clash with the melody, but we can also play G major over top of that. And these will all provide different colors while still just playing 3-note chords. Think small chords, not big chords. So let's see what we can do off of the minor triads. Let's take one of our minor triads, how about A minor, and figure out what colors we can play over top of this by substituting different triads. Remember with the C major chord, the first thing we did is go up to the 3rd of the chord, which is what tells us whether it's major or minor, and stack a triad on top of that. Well, we can do the same here. So what's the 3rd of our A minor chord? Well, we have A, B, C is our 3rd. And we're always going to flip the quality. So if it's major, we're going to play minor. If it's minor, we're going to play major. This is a minor chord, so we're going to play a C major over top. Didn't we just see this on the 6th of our C major chord? We can swap C and A minor most of the time as long as it works with our melody. So by playing this C major, we're actually playing an A minor 7th chord. All right, so I'm just going to play A minor. You strum that C major chord over top of it and listen to that quality. So we get that sound of that. And we can also build a triad off the 5th, and this time we're going to play a minor triad off the 5th. So it's going to be an E minor. Didn't we play that over top of our C chord as well, right? It became a major 7th, but here it's going to be a minor 9th chord. So we're actually hearing this sound. A real plaintive sort of sound. So we get this sound when we play the E minor over top of an A minor. So put down your E minor triad and play that over me strumming the A minor. And listen to that sound. Still minor, just with color on top. Now, we can also play an augmented triad here, but this is for very specific purposes that we're not really going to use today, but it's good to know that we can use this augmented triad. Remember that our augmented triad falls into that dominant family. It wants to move somewhere. So when we use an augmented triad over top of a minor chord, it needs to be one of two things, either in motion, right? So we can take an A minor You've heard that sound before, haven't you? A minor to E augmented, which is really A minor major 7th. Then we can walk it down to C, this idiomatic walk down over top of a minor chord. We've heard this. It can also be used if the minor chord is the 1 chord. If we're in a minor key, a minor major 7th, or the augmented sound can be used. We're not going to do that today, but it's good just to put in the back of your mind to remember for later. So let's now look at our final one, the dominant chord substitutions. When we think about qualities of chords, Joe Pass would always say that there were only 3 types of chords. There's major, minor, both of which we've already covered, and there's dominant. The dominant wants to go somewhere. That is our 7th chord. Not a minor 7th, not a major 7th, a plain old dominant 7th chord. So in the key of C that we're working in with Moonlight in Vermont, we have G7th, right? So let's look at what we can do over top of this. Now we've already seen when we built our diminished triads that we can use a B diminished triad, right? We're building again off of the 3rd. So with the dominant 7th chord, we're going to put a diminished triad over the 3rd. And this is going to look just like the G7th that you always play. But the fun thing is we can also repeat this. If we slide this up to the 5th fret, which means we're now playing off the 5th of the chord. We're playing off of a D diminished triad. This creates the sound of G7 flat 9. Really nice color on here. Sounds nasty until, resolve to C6. Maybe a C6 with a major 7 in there. And we can also take this, we can play around with those other diminished triads. We can also play off the 7th of the chord, or an F diminished triad. 5, 4, 2. This is a G7 flat 5 flat 9. Listen to this. How nice is that sound? This can also be thought of as a D flat 7th chord. This is really our tritone substitution. I'll link to my video on understanding chord substitutions, tritone subs, backdoor dominance, all that jazz, so that you can check that out. But for now, just listen to this sound. Don't actually care what it's called. This is still a G7th sound. That's what's important here. Still wants to come back to C. Now we also have some slightly weaker things that we can do if you're playing with another player that is playing chords. A pianist, a guitarist, another uke player, and they're playing a big old G7th chord. You can actually play a D minor 7th chord over top, a D minor triad, and we get the sound of a G 9th chord. We get this sound. So minor chord can work, but if you're playing by yourself, it's not quite as strong as the other options. Likewise, we still have that E minor triad. You'll find that the triad built off the 3rd of any scale, if we're within a key, is usable over nearly every chord in the key. It just becomes something new. So this E minor triad, if we put a G in the bass here, you'll hear it doesn't feel like it's in motion because it's just a minor triad. If someone else is playing underneath you, though, we get this nice sound of a G13 chord. By stacking this E minor on top, we get a G13 chord. And that still wants to resolve back to our C. Now just like with our minor chord, we can also use the augmented here, but it's a direct substitution. So if we see G7th, we can play a G augmented, because what does G augmented say? Will bring me back to C. The same exact thing that a G7th says, in very different ways. So we can always substitute that augmented if it fits with the melody, and that is the thing to remember here with any chord substitution. It needs to suit the song. We don't do it because we want to play fancy chords. We do it because it supports the melody of the song. So let's hop back to Moonlight in Vermont and see how we can use these triad substitutions to spice up this harmony and give us better voice leading. We know that Moonlight in Vermont starts on a C major chord, and we've seen that we can play an A minor triad where there is a C major chord to give us the sound of C6. So let's do that here. And why am I choosing that specific one? Well, the melody starts on the 6th. That's why it's important to know the melodies of songs. If you hop over to the Magic Ukulele Club, you can learn next week. So we're starting on this A minor triad, And then where we have an A minor chord, we could stay here, but then there'd be no movement. That'd be pennies in a string. That'd be kind of boring. So let's add some color over top of the A minor. Let's play an E minor chord. Playing off of the 5th, this gives us the sound of an A minor 9th chord. So we get pennies in a string. And then where we have a D minor 7th chord, we're gonna play the A minor, again, our A minor triad becoming a D minor 9th. And then going to F diminished where we have a G7th chord. Now this is giving us that really harsh sound of G7, flat 9, flat 5, or D flat 7, our tritone substitution. It sounds like so much. This is what I want you to think though. This is G7. 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 They're all G7. They are just different ways of saying G7. The names only matter if you have to explain it to another musician. What matters is what it sounds like and how the chords move in and out of one another. So this first phrase with our triad substitutions becomes this. Pennies in a string. Now I'm gonna play the bass movement. You play those 4 chords. 2, 3, 4. Pennies in a string. The second time we resolve, it's a C major again, right? But we're gonna change that quality, get something a little more harsh, because the melody does go back to the 6th. We're gonna play a major 7th against it. So we're gonna play that E minor. Now, why am I doing that? Well, I wanna provide a different type of movement going up here. So I'm gonna create dissonance on the first beat. So we're actually gonna hear this on the first beat. Isn't that nice? But then we're gonna resolve it to a C major triad over top of our A minor 7th chord. And then for our B flat 7 chord, let's do a bunch of these dominant substitutions. So we can play a diminished triad off the 3rd, right? So we have 5, 4, 5. So G7, the shape slid up. So there's our B flat 7th chord. Here's our root. That'll be our movable dominant 7th chord shape. But then we're gonna move it down. We're gonna play an F minor. We're gonna play off the 5th here. And why? Because I wanna go to that F diminished triad again, which in this case gives me a B flat 7 with a flat 9 on it. Again, names don't matter. But we hear in the melody, and we're playing against that. So we get something that sounds like this, which is actually really beautiful harmony in just playing triad. Sycamore. And then we're going D minor 7th, G7 usually with a flat 9. And here, so we go F. And then back to that D diminished triad. Moonlight in Vermont. Let's listen to this whole thing. Don't play along this time. I want you to just listen to the melody along with these chords and how they work. 2, 3, 4. Do do dee do dee. Be da dee do do da dee. Be do dee do dee. Now I want you to play those triad chords, and I'm gonna play the basic boring harmony so that we can hear how everything locks together. You play the triads, I'll play the big chords. 2, 3, 4. Do do dee do dee. Be da dee do do da dee. You get to provide the movement there. Nice. Be da dee do dee. Let's try it again. Be da dee do dee. Be da dee do do da dee. Be da dee do dee. This is a lot of information to take in. You're not going to understand all of this right now, but I want you to be able to hear it, because hearing is what is important in music. The sound trumps the understanding every day of the week. If you want to get some more practice in on this, we're working on this tune all month over on the Magic Ukulele Club. We're taking these triads to the next level and using the Johnny Smith versions of the triads. Lots of spread triads. These big ones that he would play, and understanding how to use those, but you also have a backing track to practice along with, because everyone deserves a bass player. I'll see y'all soon.